Hey everyone, it's Jen with Spirited Saturdays, and this week we're talking about struggles that we have with life once we're healthy again, once we don't have an eating disorder, once we don't feel that an eating disorder defines us, what that's like, and how we transition to that, and how we adjust to that. And one of the things we're looking at, if it applies to us, is what it was like leaving treatment. So I want to say that, just because, in my case, I left treatment, got, a seal of approval to leave. It certainly didn't mean at the time that I didn't have an eating disorder anymore, that I was all of a sudden healthy and all of a sudden just free of my eating disorder. One treatment provider for me way back said this was chapter one. She said that in my first treatment stay. I was in treatment twice, so I guess the leaving treatment the second time was, I don't know what chapter, but it definitely wasn't the last chapter. And for me, and I think for many, it's an ongoing process. And treatment is there to like get you started in the right direction, to give you the tools, to give you the healthiest mind frame, healthiest body that it can give you, so that you can be strong enough to then continue to deal with recovery on the outside and regular life. But you may need a real interruption from regular life in order to secure your own safety, and get you started in the right direction. So for me, it was definitely a process leaving treatment and adjusting to regular life as somebody who didn't, who wasn't in the throes of an eating disorder anymore. Was a new identity. It felt like a new identity. I felt myself change even throughout the course of treatment. Like, for example, when I would, basically, I think a lot of programs, like, they run and that you're in an inpatient center. I'm talking about inpatient treatment right now, just as it pertained to my experience. But you're in an inpatient center for a certain amount of time until you can start leaving the unit or leaving the center, whatever it is, for allotted periods of time. And that increases gradually and incrementally until you're ready to leave. So by the time you've left, hopefully you will have sufficient experience. You'll have had sufficient experience on the outside that will hopefully have prepared you the best that it could, for you to go. So you're not just going from being in a hospital all the time to being outside of it. There was definite preparation, and hopefully if they don't feel that you have prepared sufficiently, they will not release you yet, for your own best interests. So for me, that was part of the process. Um, I noticed from my first pass in the hospital to my last pass, I noticed a huge difference. It was almost like I was being birthed or something. And by the time, I left, it felt like going outside and being in the regular world was starting to become more normalized for me. So it didn't feel like a total shock, but at the same time, it did, in the sense that I basically wasn't living in a hospital anymore. I wasn't going back there most nights. Now I was going back to a home and really having to fend for myself. And at the beginning, I really didn't know what I was doing. I had the tools, I had, meal plan, but just in terms of readjusting, it was really shaky. I was a little lost. I was actually just thinking about this. I was not really sure where my life was going. You do the best that you can in the hospital to plan. That's why social workers are there to help you plan, get things in place. Start, form steps to accomplish your goals, things like that. But I'm telling you, like, first, like, the drive out of the hospital, I remember that, and all I could feel was just freedom from being in a hospital. I couldn't, it was like a lot for my brain to take at once. So it was a little bit of a fuzzy area for a little bit, in the interim, kind of, you know, not really being sure what I knew what I wanted to do, um, but I still wasn't wasn't completely sure that I could be free of the eating disorder, that you know I had attached so much meaning to, so much identity to. So shedding that was kind of rough for a little bit. Um, you probably could do it better than I did. I know that there are many people who can do it a lot better. Not to say that, I'm not saying that actually to put myself down in any kind of way. I'm saying that I want you to learn from my errors, and I want me also, I want to learn from my errors, because I did end up a few months later reverting back to some behaviors. So it was definitely an in limbo time, but um, it's recovery. They say it's not perfect, and that's true. If it were perfect, you there would be no such thing, because so many people who have eating disorders believe that they have to have the perfect recovery, and that kind of mindset plays right into the eating disorder. It's like going from wanting to have the perfect illness to the perfect recovery, be the best at either or, whatever it may apply to in that moment and that time of your life, and I think getting rid of that need to have it be perfect, that was a struggle for me, needing to, like, having real difficulty around the number of my weight, and letting myself just get really, really anxious, overwhelmed, and still relying heavily on that number to tell me my status as a human being, which is now, looking back at it, very, just so not at all syncing up with who I actually am. Um, and so as I got further along, the power, I think we did mention this last week, but the power of that, all of that diminished. The power that the eating disorder, the holds that it had over me diminished, because, I did have a plan in place in terms of seeing my therapist, seeing my nutritionist, and there was a biweekly group that I was going to. So, insofar as those things, I had a treatment plan. But, insofar as my life was going, I really felt like I was kind of just staying in one place. I was just not sure what was going to happen, what doors were going to open, and how I was going to get to the next step, because I was kind of holding on to something else. So, as I started to figure it out, I started to engage in my goals and my ambitions, and I started to let go. This really lined up well with recovering from, as I had mentioned, the brief period of relapse that occurred a few months after leaving the hospital. This definitely put my intentions and my desires in gear and on track. And so I think once I began, to think about how I'm going to build a life I want, I was able to change my focus and let, things that had been so deeply wired into my brain, start to let them ease. I think everybody's situation is very different, so I don't want to go into any specifics as to how long it took, but I will tell you that it went from being very, very severe and obsessive and clinging to that very much, to a very unsettling degree, to being very free of it, very, very, and just things that used to take up so much space in my brain and in my, just in me. It's just, they faded into the background until they pretty much, I'd say for the most part, aren't there anymore now. So, it was a process. And, and even now when certain things come up, I can dismiss them easily. It's like, this is very different, so take it or leave it, take it as you will. But I also used to smoke, and being a non-smoker now, when I like rarely ever, occasionally, like so spaced out apart, but get the urge to smoke, I'm like, huh, that that's interesting. I'm not gonna smoke. I mean, it's not even an option. So, it's sort of like that in a way. Not, trying to water down anything, but maybe if you smoke, you may understand. But yeah, so, just to recap a little bit, like the first, or maybe explain a little more. The first, I left treatment it happened to be Thanksgiving, like the day before Thanksgiving. So I spent that time with family, and was still very, very hyper focused on food for a while, but just made sure I surrounded myself with people that would understand and, you know, not judge, and that's really important. And the more you the more focus you give to creating the life that you want, the more you will have it. One of the things that I did was go back to school. um, and I realized at the time, I was like, I'm not ready to apply to grad school, but I found a certificate program for creative arts therapy, and that really helped. So, just I think just, going at your own pace is really important. Surrounding yourself with people who, will nurture your growth, understand, um, making that segue as smooth on yourself as possible, and knowing that you have people at your fingertips that you could reach out to if you are having a hard time really helped. Just, being in the world, without that eating disorder identity, it, that is now instead filled up with things that I love so much to do. And today it just, without, I don't mean to sound, what am I not meaning to sound like? Don't worry about whatever. Okay, I'm gonna sound what I sound like. But it actually baffles me to realize that there's a piece of myself that was just laying dormant for so long, like that had gone unaddressed, cultivated. I mean, it baffles me, and it if I had known when I had the eating disorder, if I could have just sampled a little bit of what this feels like today, I probably would have wanted recovery a lot more, and tried a lot harder, when it was, really hard. So all I can say is that you've got to trust that there's something there. The eating disorder is very, very effective at taking up all of the space in your world and preventing you from seeing anything that may come after. So, a lot of this is trust. And a lot of it is just building on what you've already got. And when you really, transition and just feel kind of normal again, and your whole life doesn't have to be about eating disorder recovery either, as a recovering person. You can be around, you can be kind of in spontaneous situations and not have to worry about food. It's all very, very, very possible, very possible. So I just wish you the best of luck if you're going through some kind of transition, if you're getting out of treatment, if you've just recently gotten out. It's totally doable. Just, make sure you have support, and know that you don't have to be where you are in this moment. You can move forward. You can fulfill your dreams. You can create dreams. You can realize dreams that you never knew you had. All of these things you can have. They are accessible to you. Just as accessible, and more, actually, than the eating disorder has felt. So that is it. This was a biggie. So yeah, have a great week, and I will see you next week. Okay, bye.